in the scriptures, when the master came back and he saw that the two servants that doubled what their master gave them, in Matthew 25:21, the master replied to him, "Well done, good and faithful servants. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness." How many of you want God to say to you, "Well done, my good and faithful servant"? How many of you want God to put you in charge or give you more than you already have? How many of you want God to say, "Come and share in my happiness. Come and share in my glory"? You have been faithful with a few things, so I will put you in charge of many things. Be faithful first in what God has already given you. Be thankful first in what God has already given you. We kind of said it a little bit earlier, and I know you guys probably just weren't in the mood to talk because you guys are pretty much mutes and don't really like to say anything. But when we talked about what are you thankful for, nobody could really come up with anything. You think if you can't come up with anything, God's going to give you any more? You can't sit up here and say what you're thankful about. I mean, we're all here. We're all alive. We all ate today. Some of us more than others. Y'all got clothes on. Can you really not think of anything to be thankful about? And if you really can't come up with anything, why would God give you anything else? Why would God say, "Well done, my good and faithful servants," with what I've already entrusted you with? So sometimes we find ourselves being more like the third servant, who we take what God has given us, and what did he do? He took the talents, again, that's equivalent to $32,000, and he buried it. He buried it. He did nothing with it for that whole season. The master entrusted him with it. He buried it. You're probably thinking, like, why would he do that? And when the master came back, what he said? He said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. So here it is, what belongs to you. That's what the servant said back to the master. Here it is, what belongs to you. He thought he did something good, right? He thought he did something good. I gave you exactly back what you gave to me. But you know what he was? He was scared. Scared to lose what the master gave him, but also scared to use what the master gave him. How many of us are scared to use what God has given us? The master replied to him in verse 26, "You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well then, you shouldn't have put my money on deposit. You should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would receive it back with interest." In the Message version, it says, "The master was furious. That's a terrible way to live. It's criminal to live cautiously like that. If you knew I was after the best, why did you do less than the least? The least you could have done with what I've been to invest the sum with the bankers, where at least I would have gotten a little interest." Basically what he was saying, if you have $32,000 and you go bury it, that's stupid, because if you go put it in the bank, you'd at least have $32,000 and like $10 at the end of the year. Why? Because it gets interest. So he said that's a safe way to go about investing your money. The other guys pretty much put it in the stock market. The stock market can go up real high, but as we've seen lately, it can also go down real low. But they did this, they invested it, they got lucky, and it went up real high. This guy buried it, which was stupid. He didn't get any money back. The master told him it's criminal to live that cautiously. It's criminal to be scared to lose what God has given you. It's criminal to be scared to use what God has given you. Think about it, criminal. So what did the master do? He took what was given to that servant, then he gave it to the other ones who invested it and used it the right way. And in verse 28 it says, take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. 29, for everyone who has will be given more, and he will have in abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And listen closely in verse 30. If you don't hear anything else tonight, listen to what this says in verse 30. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Throw that servant outside in the darkness where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, basically what it's saying, the unprofitable servant, he didn't do anything what we would consider a major sin, did he? He didn't make any flagrant iniquities charged against him. He wasn't an adulterer. He wasn't a murderer, wasn't a fornicator, wasn't a blasphemer, wasn't a thief, wasn't a liar. He didn't do any of those things. But yet still, in verse 30, what does it say? It's pretty much throw him out into hell with all those other people. To some people, that unprofitable servant who didn't do anything compared to what we might think of the people in this world, he was a saint. But he didn't get the end that you would think. It's criminal. It's criminal for God to give you something and you not to lose it. Now let's bring it a little bit around to something you maybe understand a little bit better. Each one of you has a talent. We see it some up here come up and play instruments. Some come up here and sing. Some are running cameras right now. Some people pray. Some people dance. Each and every one of you has a talent. With that talent comes responsibility. God has given it to you, just like the servant, or just like the master has given those three servants different things. Not all of you on the same level. Not all of you have the same amount of responsibility. Some of you are walking around here with more on your shoulders than others. Why? Because God says you can handle it. It's a position you have been put in. You have talents. You have responsibilities. You have abilities. Those abilities are not yours to hide away. Those abilities are not yours to go and make money on. Those abilities were given to you to go out and make it profitable for the Father.